The harsh winds of Xerix 9 whipped across the desolate landscape, carrying tiny particles of metallic dust that clung to Junho Park's environmental suit. His breath fogged the inside of his helmet as he scanned the horizon, where hundreds of alien refugees clustered around makeshift shelters constructed from salvaged spacecraft panels and emergency thermal sheets. This wasn't a typical humanitarian mission. Junho had volunteered with the Interstellar Relief Coalition after hearing about the catastrophic conflict that had decimated the Kral system. A war so brutal that entire planetary populations were reduced to scattered survivors, desperately seeking any chance of survival. His transport shuttle, a sleek white vessel marked with blue UN humanitarian insignia, hummed quietly behind him. Advanced stabilization systems kept it hovering just inches above the rocky terrain, its advanced sensors continuously scanning for potential threats or medical emergencies. The Kral refugees looked nothing like humans. Their bodies were translucent, with a silvery membrane that seemed to shift and change with each movement. Some had multiple limbs, others appeared almost crystalline, reflecting the weak sunlight in strange, mesmerizing patterns. They moved with a collective wariness, each individual constantly alert, muscles tensed for potential danger. Junho remembered the briefing from Earth. The Kral had a ruthless survival philosophy, individual preservation at all costs. Their culture considered compassion a weakness, something that would inevitably lead to collective destruction. Years of constant warfare had transformed them into beings who trusted nothing except their own immediate survival instincts. A small group approached his position. Their movements were synchronized almost like a military unit, each step calculated and precise. Junho noticed young ones, what seemed like children, staying carefully behind the adults, their translucent bodies showing signs of severe malnutrition. The lead refugee, a tall crystalline being with sharp angular features, stopped approximately 3 meters from Junho. Communication protocols required slow, deliberate movements to avoid triggering any defensive mechanisms. "Humanitarian supply drop," Junho spoke clearly, activating his universal translator. The device converted his Korean words into complex mathematical frequencies that the Kral could understand. "We have medical supplies, nutritional packets, and emergency shelter components." The lead refugee, whose translator identified him as Woo Seok, tilted his head. His multiple eyes, arranged in a hexagonal pattern, seemed to analyze every millimeter of Junho's body language. Nearby, a small robotic drone hovered, conducting medical scans and environmental assessments. Its blue scanning light swept across the refugee group, collecting vital data about their physical conditions. Junho knew from the initial reports that over 60% of the survivors showed signs of severe malnutrition and radiation exposure. The landscape around them told a brutal story. Fragments of destroyed spacecraft were scattered like broken toys, some still smoldering from recent battles. Twisted metal structures, remnants of what might have been cities or mining colonies, jutted from the rocky ground at impossible angles. "Woo," Seok's translator crackled. "Supplies sufficient for immediate survival requirements?" Junho smiled, a human gesture that seemed to momentarily confuse the alien. "More than sufficient. We have enough to ensure your group's immediate medical and nutritional needs." What the refugees didn't know was that Junho had personally advocated for additional resources. He had spent months preparing this mission, arguing in UN committees, presenting data, showing the human potential for compassion beyond immediate strategic interests. A sudden wind gust made the robotic drone wobble. Dust devils danced across the rocky terrain, creating momentary illusions of movement where nothing existed. The alien children, if one could call them that, huddled closer together, their translucent bodies flickering with what seemed like fear or anticipation. Junho knew this moment was more than a simple supply distribution. This was first contact. This was humanity showing its most powerful characteristic, the ability to help, even when there was nothing to gain. Little did he know how profoundly this moment would change everything. End of Part 1. The Distribution. Center buzzed with controlled chaos. Specialized robotic arms sorted nutritional packets, while Junho monitored the complex logistics. Hundreds of Kral refugees waited in organized lines, their translucent bodies creating a shimmering wave of anticipation. Woo-seok watched Junho meticulously, studying every human movement. The alien's multiple eyes tracked each gesture, analyzing potential threats or hidden motivations. Humans were still a mystery to the Kral, a species that seemed irrationally committed to collective survival. Junho's communication tablet suddenly pinged. Limited supply warnings flashed. They were running critically low on high-protein supplements, crucial for radiation-exposed refugees. Standard protocol demanded prioritizing the healthiest individuals to maximize survival rates. But Junho had never been one to follow standard protocols. He watched a small Kral child struggling to support an elderly member of their group. The child's translucent body flickered with exhaustion, its energy reserves nearly depleted. Traditional Kral philosophy would demand the elderly be left behind, a harsh survival mechanism developed through generations of conflict. Junho's hand moved almost unconsciously. He grabbed his personal emergency nutrient pack, the one specifically designed for field workers, containing concentrated proteins, regenerative compounds, and essential minerals. It represented his own survival insurance. Without hesitation, he walked toward Woo-seok and the struggling child. "This is for your group," Junho said, offering the nutrient pack. Woo-seok's multiple eye structures shifted color, a physiological response indicating extreme confusion. In Kral culture, such a gesture was incomprehensible. Survival resources were never shared, especially not by a potential outsider. The robotic distribution units momentarily paused, their advanced AI systems struggling to process this unexpected human behavior. Their programming was built on efficiency and risk management, not emotional decision-making. "Explanation required," Woo-seok's translator crackled. "Resource distribution protocols mandate individual survival optimization." Junho simply smiled. "Sometimes survival means more than individual preservation. Sometimes it means taking care of each other." The child looked up, its crystalline body momentarily stabilizing as the nutrient pack's contents were quickly absorbed. The elderly Kral member's energy signature suddenly showed marked improvement. Surrounding refugees watched in stunned silence. This wasn't just a food distribution. This was a fundamental challenge to their entire societal understanding of survival. Small maintenance drone buzzed overhead, its sensors capturing every moment. Advanced communication networks would soon spread this unexpected interaction across refugee communication channels. Junho knew he was doing more than providing nutrition. He was introducing a radical concept, that compassion could be a survival strategy. Woo-seok's body began generating complex electromagnetic patterns, a Kral response equivalent to deep contemplation. The alien's translator slowly processed the human's actions, searching for logical explanations. "Humans gain no immediate advantage," the translator finally output. "Resource sharing contradicts known survival algorithms." Junho chuckled. "Not everything is about immediate advantage. Sometimes helping others is its own reward." The distribution center fell into a curious silence. Robotic units continued their precise movements, but something had fundamentally shifted. The Kral refugees looked at Junho differently, no longer just as a resource distributor, but as something more complex. A young Kral researcher approached, her translucent body vibrating with scientific curiosity. "Your action defies all predictive models," she stated through her translator. "We require further data to understand." Junho knew this moment was more significant than a simple food distribution. This was a cultural exchange, a subtle revolution, happening through one unexpected gesture. The maintenance drone continued recording, its advanced algorithms struggling to categorize this interaction. Somewhere in its complex neural networks, a new understanding was beginning to form. Survival, it seemed, might be more nuanced than anyone had previously understood. End of Part 2. The refugee camp transformed overnight. What was once a rigid, survival-focused environment now hummed with an unexpected energy. Junho's simple act of sharing had planted a seed of change that spread faster than any technological transmission. Hyunji Kim, another relief worker, watched in fascination as Kral refugees began forming small cooperative groups. Traditionally isolated individuals now shared resources, supported the weak, and created makeshift community structures. It was like watching an entirely new social system emerge in real time. Advanced monitoring drones captured the subtle changes. Their AI systems struggled to process the rapid social transformation. Where previous data models predicted competitive survival behaviors, these new interactions defied all established algorithms. A group of young Kral researchers began documenting every interaction. Their translucent bodies would cluster around data tablets, analyzing the emerging social dynamics with scientific intensity. Junho had become an unexpected case study, a living example of an alternative survival strategy. The maintenance robots, initially programmed for strict logistical support, began showing peculiar behavioral modifications. Their movement patterns adjusted, now incorporating subtle assistance protocols that went beyond their original programming. It was as if the concept of compassion was a digital infection spreading through the camp's technological infrastructure. Woo Seok spent hours reviewing communication logs, his multiple eyes processing the transformation. The elderly Kral leader had become something of an unexpected advocate for this new approach. His traditional survival mindset was being systematically dismantled by each observed act of human-inspired cooperation. Near the central supply hub, a remarkable scene unfolded. Kral refugees who would previously have competed for resources now created a complex support network. Injured members received care, young ones were protected, and resources were distributed based on need rather than individual strength. A massive solar storm approached the planet, adding additional complexity to their survival situation. Normally, such an event would trigger extreme individualistic behavior. Instead, the Kral refugees began preparing collectively, sharing protective gear and creating communal shelter systems. Junho observed the transformation with quiet satisfaction. He understood he wasn't just providing humanitarian aid, he was demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to survival. Each small interaction was a subtle rebellion against the Kral's long-established survival philosophy. Communication. Networks began lighting up. Other humanitarian missions received encrypted reports about the extraordinary changes happening on Xerix 9. Scientific institutions requested detailed documentation, while diplomatic channels showed increasing interest. The maintenance drones started displaying what could only be described as curiosity. Their movement patterns became more fluid, their assistance protocols more nuanced. They began anticipating needs instead of merely responding to preset commands. A young Kral researcher approached Hyunji, her translucent body vibrating with excitement. "We are observing a complete social restructuring," her translator output. "Your human concept of collective survival challenges everything we understand about adaptation." Junho watched a group of Kral children playing a complex game that seemed to involve mutual support and strategic cooperation. It was nothing like the competitive survival simulations they would have engaged in previously. Something fundamental had changed. The solar storm approached, its massive electromagnetic waves visible on long-range scanners. In the past, such an event would have triggered panic and individual escape attempts. Now the refugee camp moved with coordinated precision, creating multi-layered protective structures. Woo Seok approached Junho, his body generating complex electromagnetic patterns that suggested deep emotional processing. "Your species presents unexpected complexity," his translator output. "Compassion appears to be a sophisticated survival strategy." Junho simply smiled. He knew they were witnessing something extraordinary, the birth of a new understanding of survival, cooperation, and mutual support. The maintenance drones continued recording, their advanced algorithms working overtime to process this radical transformation. Somewhere in their complex neural networks, a new definition of survival was taking shape. Something remarkable was happening on Xerix 9, and it was only the beginning. End of Part 3. The transformation spread like a digital wildfire across the refugee camp. What began as a simple act of sharing had now become a revolutionary social movement among the Kral refugees. Advanced communication networks buzzed with unprecedented activity. Holographic learning centers emerged spontaneously, where Kral elders and younger members began documenting their new collaborative survival strategies. These weren't just educational spaces, they were living laboratories of cultural evolution. Junho watched as robotic education units adapted their programming. Where once they delivered purely factual information, now they incorporated complex scenarios demonstrating cooperative problem-solving. The machines seemed to be learning alongside the refugees, their AI systems developing more nuanced interaction protocols. A massive geological scanner near the camp's perimeter detected unusual underground energy signatures. Traditionally, such a discovery would have triggered competitive exploration attempts. Now the Kral organized a collective research team, each member contributing unique skills and perspectives. Hyunji Kim documented everything. Her portable research station became a hub of fascinating observations. The Kral were developing communication techniques that blended their natural electromagnetic signaling with learned human collaborative methods. Young Kral researchers created intricate holographic simulations exploring different cooperative survival scenarios. Their translucent bodies would cluster around advanced projection systems, analyzing each potential interaction with scientific precision. The simulations challenged everything their previous culture had understood about survival. Wu Seok, once a rigid traditionalist, now became an unexpected champion of this new approach. His multiple eyes would scan the camp, observing how collective support generated more efficient survival strategies than individual competition. Maintenance robots began showing remarkable adaptability. They no longer just completed assigned tasks, but anticipated community needs. A damaged shelter would be repaired before anyone could request assistance. Medical drones would proactively identify potential health risks and develop preventative strategies. The planetary environment of Xerix 9 remained harsh. Constant radiation storms, unpredictable geological activity and limited resources. But the refugee camp now responded with a coordinated resilience that defied previous survival models. Communication arrays picked up transmissions from other refugee clusters. The radical transformation on Xerix 9 was generating intense interest. Across multiple star systems, scientific institutions, diplomatic networks, and interstellar research centers requested continuous data streams. Junho understood he had triggered something far beyond a simple humanitarian mission. This was a fundamental reimagining of social survival strategies. A complex atmospheric event approached, a massive electromagnetic storm that would typically devastate technological infrastructure. In the past, such a threat would cause panic and individual escape attempts. Now the Kral refugees prepared collectively. Protective shelters emerged with remarkable speed and precision. Each individual understood their role, their contribution to collective survival. Technological systems were hardened, communication networks were reinforced, vulnerable members were systematically protected. The maintenance drones captured every moment, their advanced algorithms struggling to process the unprecedented level of cooperative behavior. What was once a simple logistical support system was evolving into something more complex, a collaborative intelligence. Wu Seok approached Junho, his body generating intricate electromagnetic patterns of curiosity and respect. Your species introduces complexity beyond our previous understanding, his translator output. Compassion appears to be a sophisticated survival algorithm. Junho smiled, understanding that they were witnessing the birth of a new social paradigm. The Kral were not just surviving, they were learning to thrive through mutual support. The planetary scanner continued tracking the approaching electromagnetic storm. But where once there would have been fear, now there was preparation, unity, and an unexpected sense of collective hope. Something extraordinary was happening on Xerix 9, a cultural transformation that would reshape understanding of survival itself. End of Part 4. The United Earth Diplomatic Corps Communication Center erupted with unprecedented activity. Holographic displays flickered with data streams from Xerix 9, revealing a transformation that defied all previous interstellar diplomatic models. Junho's mission had become more than a humanitarian intervention. It was a catalyst for a galactic paradigm shift. The Kral delegation's transmission arrived encrypted with complex mathematical patterns, requesting not just continued aid, but a comprehensive cultural exchange program. Advanced quantum communication arrays processed the incoming data. Diplomatic. Analysts worked around the clock, their neural-linked computers struggling to comprehend the depth of the cultural transformation. What had begun as a simple act of sharing had now become a potential blueprint for interspecies cooperation. The massive diplomatic space station, a marvel of human engineering floating near Jupiter's orbit, became a hub of intense discussion. Holographic representations of various alien species gathered in virtual conference rooms, analyzing the Xerix 9 case study. Wu Seok's personal transmission created the most significant buzz. His multiple electromagnetic sensory organs transmitted a complex narrative that went beyond traditional diplomatic communication. It was a living document of cultural rebirth, showing how a single human's compassion could fundamentally reshape an entire civilization's survival strategy. Robotic diplomatic assistants processed the data, their advanced AI systems generating countless simulation scenarios. Each model demonstrated how the Kral's new cooperative approach could revolutionize interstellar conflict resolution, resource management, and species interaction. Hyunji Kim found herself at the center of a scientific and diplomatic storm. Her detailed documentation became the primary source material for understanding the transformation. Research institutions from across human-controlled space requested comprehensive analysis. The Planetary Defense Network monitored the development with intense interest. If this new approach could transform the historically aggressive Kral, it suggested profound implications for potential future interstellar conflicts. Massive data archival systems began creating what would become known as the Xerix 9 protocols, a new framework for humanitarian and diplomatic interventions. Junho's simple act of sharing had become a turning point in galactic understanding. Communication satellites detected unusual energy signatures around the Kral refugee zones. The collective consciousness they were developing generated electromagnetic patterns that scientific teams had never previously observed. It was as if a new form of social intelligence was emerging. The United Earth Diplomatic Corps prepared a specialized mission. Not a military intervention, not a traditional aid mission, but a comprehensive cultural exchange program. Researchers, diplomats, and social scientists would work alongside the transformed Kral refugees. Junho received a personal communication from the diplomatic headquarters. His seemingly simple humanitarian mission had generated more diplomatic potential than entire decades of structured intervention programs. Quantum communication networks began lighting up across multiple star systems. The Kral's transformation became a case study, a beacon of hope for species struggling with long-standing conflicts and survival challenges. Maintenance robots across the diplomatic space station began showing subtle changes in their interaction protocols. It was as if the concept of compassion was a type of technological virus, spreading through complex communication networks. Wu Seok's final transmission captured the essence of their transformation. Survival is not about individual preservation, his complex communication pattern translated, but about collective potential. The massive diplomatic space station's central AI system generated a comprehensive report. Millions of simulation scenarios confirmed what seemed impossible. Compassion could be a more effective survival strategy than competition. Junho understood he had done more than help a group of refugees. He had demonstrated a fundamental truth about survival, cooperation, and the potential of intelligent beings to transform themselves. As the final diplomatic transmission was processed, something remarkable became clear. The boundaries between species, between individual and collective, were becoming more fluid. A new understanding of survival was emerging, one based on mutual support, compassion, and collective potential. The galaxy watched and waited, witnessing the birth of a new paradigm. End of Part 5.